On the show today, we have guest Dr. Chad Dumas. Dr. Chad Dumas is a Solution Tree PLC at Work, RTI at Work, Assessment and Priority Schools Associate, and international consultant, presenter, and award-winning researcher whose primary focus is collaborating to develop capacity for continuous improvement. With over a quarter century of successful leadership experience, Chad has led significant improvements for both students and staff. He shares his research and knowledge in his books and consulting that includes research, stories, hands-on tools, and practical skills. Get ready for a great episode.
I'm educational justice coach Lindsay Lyons, and here on the Time for Teachership podcast, we learn how to inspire educational innovation for racial and gender justice, design curricula grounded in student voice, and build capacity for shared leadership. I'm a former teacher leader turned instructional coach. I'm striving to live a life full of learning, running, baking, traveling, and parenting because we can be rockstar educators and be full human beings. If you're a principal, assistant superintendent, curriculum director, instructional coach, or teacher who enjoys nerding out about co-creating curriculum with students, I made this show for you. Here we go. Dr. Dumas, welcome back to the Time for Teachership podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be with you.
I'm so excited. I'm excited about this book, and I'm also really excited. I don't think I mentioned this to you, but we're gonna release this episode in concert with like several others that I think make a lot of sense, both for teacher leaders as well as kind of facilitating in classrooms as well. I think that's relevant for like wherever you kind of enter into the facilitation or construction of like navigating a group and getting a group to be productive and to do all the things that you mentioned in the book. So I kind of want to set the stage there that this is being released on the heels of like a bunch of other books that kind of talk with one another. And I think we'll see that today. Is there anything that you want people to know as we enter the conversation today?
Well, I love that. This book builds on the greatness of lots of people who've come before us, right? Like you maybe have heard, I think it's in the Bible, it says there's not a new idea under the sun, right? Like there are a lot of greatness that we come from, and then we come and we build on it. We say, here's a way to organize that, or here's a way to structure that, or here's a tool to help with that. And so the intent of this book wasn't really to create, like there's not a lot new in it. It's organized in such a way that I think that the greatness of the work of people like Michael Grinder and Kendall Zoller and Bob Gardson and Carolyn McAnders and Bruce Wellman, and like the list goes on and on and on. And I haven't even gotten into the PLC at Work people of Rick DeFore and Becky DeFore and Bob Aker and Anthony Mohammed and Mike Madden. The whole list goes on and on and on. And what I have tried to do is take all of that and put it into a usable, simple format, right? Like the subheading for the book. It's, the heading is the Teacher Team Leader Handbook, but the subheading is simple habits to transform collaboration. So out of all of the greatness of all of those people before us, how can we take that and put it together in such a way that it's simple, usable, and it can do what the subtitle intends: transform collaboration.
I love that framing, and it kind of grounds me to this first question I was thinking about, where I usually ask about mindset, but you have very clearly laid out kind of the three responsibilities of that facilitator. And so, I think you call them teacher team leader responsibilities, right? And so I'm curious if you can kind of ground us in those, because I think a lot of times, me as a teacher leader, it's like, the job is to like go through the agenda or read off these points. It's like, that's very low bar.
Yeah. So what I did was pulled together a lot of research from other greats. And in this case, around the responsibilities really gets to a lot of the work of Amy Edmondson and Charles Duhigg and others. And the idea, so there's three responsibilities that I identify. The first responsibility is the most important, and that's to create psychological safety. If we don't have psychological safety, we're not going anywhere. Like that's the, to use the Latin term, the one Latin phrase that I remember from high school, sine qua non, without which there is nothing. If the team does not have psychological safety, everything else will become compliance. It could be toxic, etc. So that's the number one responsibility of the teacher team leader, is to make sure that there's psychological safety, make it safe. The second responsibility of the teacher team leader is to build capacity. So that means that we're helping each other learn why we're doing what we're doing and how to do it. Like you said, sometimes teacher team leaders think that their job is to do the work. Well, that's the third responsibility. As the team, we're going to do the work, but I propose that that responsibility is actually the least important of the three responsibilities. The most important, the two that are never talked about, are make it safe and build capacity. When you are doing that, then the doing the work will become more manageable. We're sharing the load. We understand why we're doing it. We're able to do it in a space that is safe for us. And let me just say a word about safety too, if you don't mind. That sometimes people confuse safety with comfort or safety with nice. I was born and raised in Nebraska, and the tourism slogan in Nebraska for many years was Nebraska nice. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about just like we show up and we're polite to each other, and then the real meeting happens out in the parking lot with our car keys in hand. What we're talking about is a psychologically safe space where everyone is able to express their views, and they do express their views. We're able to have conflict that's cognitive as opposed to relational or affective, right? So these are the three responsibilities. Make it safe, build capacity, do the work.
I love too that you just define that for us, and in the book you do that as well. You even list out Edmondson's, like, I think it's like 7 indicators or something that she has. And like I really appreciate the depth of that, because I do think people often say things now as like kind of a term that gets thrown around, like, oh,
Yeah,
it's a safe space. It's like,
right.
what? Like, what are you even talking about, right? And you can't
Yeah,
just declare it safe. It's something that the group, what I got from your writing as well, is that the group needs to, each individual of the group needs to perceive it as safe to actually have psychological safety. It's not something you could
right.
be like, I'm the team leader and I say it's safe here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And Duhigg actually identifies two elements to psychological safety. The first element is social sensitivity. That is the degree to which we perceive and recognize the nonverbal communication um, behaviors that others display and respond appropriately. The second element of psychological safety is equity of turn taking. So there's not one person dominating. There's not one person sitting around not doing, contributing at all. So that's what comprises psychological safety. Those two things: social sensitivity, that my book addresses through the moves and techniques that the individual teacher team leader can use and leverage to develop that social sensitivity. And then the second part is the equity of turn taking, which is all about the strategies and protocols to be able to get everybody's voices in the room.
Oh, I love that so much. It just, in the way you frame it and the way that is so parallel to what, exactly how your book is structured so
Yeah.
intentionally.
Yep.
I love that. And I think so the other thing I was thinking is, and we can, quickly touch on this, but I think you have so much research, as you said, you kind of build on everyone's. I mean, I saw Frary in there a few times that I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh yes, this totally connects. And one of the things is like kind of the reasons for dysfunction that Lencioni brings up.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people could see that in their meetings and be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yep, I've seen that come up. I know exactly the meeting that comes to mind when I think about this. So I'm curious to know if you could kind of touch on that for a minute for us.
Yeah. So Patrick Lencioni came out with, I think the name of the book is the Five Dysfunctions of a Team or something like that. And so he identifies these five dysfunctions, and then the parallel. What does that look like on the opposite end when you have function? And so I just raise those five signs of dysfunction that you can see in teams. I don't dig into it a ton in the book, rather just kind of raise it as like be aware of absence of trust, absence of accountability, absence of follow through. These types of things are indicators of dysfunction. And then what I also say is, now an absence of dysfunction is a pretty low bar, right? Like, I don't know if I've met anybody who says, yeah, I want to go to this meeting that's not dysfunctional. What a higher bar that we want to strive for is that of community. And Block has a great definition of community, where it's a caring for the whole, where each of us are part of the whole, caring for the whole, and the whole is caring for us. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind, that this book is part of the subtitle is in a professional learning community. And community is there. professional learning community. Those words were not chosen at random. They were chosen, right? It grew out of the 60s in the work of Shirley Hord and the Southeast Educational Regional Laboratory and others. And so we have a long line of this phrase, and community is very intentional. And so as a leader, as a teacher team leader, what are we doing to build that community? And again, it goes beyond just feeling good, being nice, having good treats, although those are helpful. That's not the end all be all. A community where we are caring for each other as the whole and as the individuals.
That makes so much sense to me, especially because I have my head on. I'm thinking about what will come out after this episode is released, is that I think I'm going to do a solo show thinking about how all of these kind of like leader facilitator books are actually also similar, as I said, to like teaching in a class and things like that. And I'm already thinking about, right, we use the word community in terms of a class community as well, a
Mm-hmm.
school community, like inclusive of young people as well. And it is also so important that it's not just nice, but it is truly all of that learning, is part of it as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
Zaretta Hammond's work kind of connects to that, right? And all
absolutely.
of it. So I love the parallels that you're making me think about. So this is really exciting stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You're absolutely correct. So I've had the opportunity, as part of this book launch, schools have reached out and said, "Hey, we want you to come do some training." So I've done some one-day overviews, but also some multi-day. I refer to it as a teacher team leader academy. And as part of those, it's wonderful to be working with these teacher team leaders who then raise these exact point that you're talking about. This idea of psychological safety, like you could take those three responsibilities and apply them to the classroom. Number one responsibility of the teacher in the classroom, make it psychologically safe. Number two responsibility, build the capacity of students to be able to understand why they're doing it and what they're doing. Number three responsibility, do the work, right? Like that translates to the classroom. And so it's really wonderful seeing teachers make those connections, that it's not just the teacher team leader in a team, but these same assumptions, mindset, habits, right? That's in the title of the book. They're habits. These same habits apply in a classroom. They apply with your partner or spouse. They apply with your children. They apply with other family members, your neighbors. These really are simple habits that can transform lives, is maybe a big word, but that's probably fairly accurate when people start to use and leverage these habits.
I agree. And I mean, what better way to like get people interested in making potentially hard changes in habits? It's like, actually, this is not just for work, right? This is for your
Absolutely.
whole, everyone you interact with. This is being a human. So I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the things I was thinking about too as well, I mean, I just read I always forget the name of this book, Hands Down Speak Up or Speak Out. I can't remember. But it's like K through 5 conversations that are student led and how do we like, put on the students. It's a bunch of like mini moves. And one of them is kind of a synthesis paraphrase, which I
Mm-hmm.
know Carolyn McCanders and I were just talking on the podcast about this. You have named in your book, and I'm curious about, some actions that you might take. Your whole book is full of, these habits that we might take, some strategies, some kind of mindsets, and I am curious to know about some of them. The paraphrase one I'd love to get to, but any other ones that you want to pull in, feel free. Like, what does that mean when you're in kind of the moment and you're responding to lots of voices or particular types of voices that maybe there is a little discomfort or whatever happens in a meeting? Like, how do I enact some of this stuff? Just
Oh,
question
yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Paraphrase is like magic. So the paraphrase, actually, I learned this phrase from Carolyn McDanders, and I would use it when I would go into difficult meetings. And if there was a meeting I was going into, and I knew it was going to be a challenge, I would write it on a sticky note and I'd put it on my computer in front of me, so nobody else could see it, but I could. And it said this: it said, "Paraphrase your butt off." So, like, it is that powerful of a tool. And paraphrase does two things. When you paraphrase someone, it's, first of all, it's not, before I tell you the two things that it does not indicate agreement. I can paraphrase someone without agreeing with them. What a paraphrase does is it does two things. At first, it helps them to feel understood, and two, it helps me to understand.
Hi, this is Leah popping in to share the free resource for this episode, the Teacher Team Leader Handbook. You can find it at the blog post for this episode, www.lindsaybethlyons.com/blog/231. Now back to the show.
And that's it. With that clarity of them feeling understood and me understanding, now we can move forward with productive conflict. Without them feeling understood and without me understanding, we're not able to move forward. You've probably been in situations where you've and your listeners have been in situations where you said something with someone, and then they went a totally different direction, and like 5 minutes later, you're like, forget about it. Like it's not even work. Like there's that cycle, right? You're like, you just went down a whole path that I have no clue what you're talking about. Well, you can save all that breath, save all that energy by just a simple paraphrase. And paraphrase don't have to be long. They actually shouldn't be long. If your paraphrase is longer what somebody else is saying, then work on it to get better at it. A paraphrase really needs to encapsulate the nuggets of what they're saying. And Carolyn McAnders, I look forward to listening to that episode, by the way, because she is a master. Oh, she is absolutely incredible. Can listen to her for days on end. Her ability to take the nuggets of what somebody is saying and synthesize it into a few small things. And so in the book, I draw on Garmston and Wellman's work around the paraphrase. And they're different folks talk about different types of paraphrase. I think their three types are the easiest to understand. The first type is to acknowledge. It's simply to acknowledge what wow, you're frustrated at, or you're angry at, or you're one of the things that you've been thinking about is. All I'm doing is acknowledging back what that person said. The second type of paraphrase is an organizing paraphrase. People, especially if you're in a leadership position, right, like a teacher, team leader, or a principal, people come at you, and I sometimes use the phrase they verbally vomit on you, right? Like they just all the things. They haven't had a chance to really think through what they're saying. They're just like getting things off their chest. So an organizing paraphrase might be helpful for them. What does that look like? Okay, so it sounds like there's 3 things that you're talking about here, or there's 2 things, or 4 important, right? So I'm organizing, and then I'm saying, and the first one is blah, blah, blah. The second one is blah, blah, blah. And the third one is blah, blah, blah. That's an organizing paraphrase. And many times when I engage in organizing paraphrase, people will say, yeah, I never thought of it that way. Thank you. And off they go, and then they start to solve it themselves, right? Other times they say, well, maybe it's really 2, or maybe there's another thing there. The point is they're starting to feel understood, and now you're understanding. So the acknowledging paraphrase, the organizing paraphrase, and the third one is the abstracting paraphrase, which I find particularly challenging myself. It's taking things from a concrete level to an abstract level, or the other way around, from an abstract level to a concrete. Very challenging, takes a lot. I think it takes a lot of practice. And in my book, what I do is I have a graphic that kind of lays out those 3 with some potential, like what they are, some potential sentence stems, how it might apply in a group setting when you're working with others. Because it's one thing to paraphrase an individual. It's another thing to paraphrase when I'm in a group of 2, 3, 4, 5 other people. Equally, maybe even more so powerful to be able to say, so it sounds like as a team, we're saying these 3 things, or it sounds like maybe this might be the next appropriate step. Paraphrasing for the group is very powerful.
Yeah, and I that's so exciting. And I also think that's the hardest. And what I'm heartened by is in this book, the K5 student-led discussion one of the moves was literally the abstract paraphrase. I didn't call it that, but it was like, take what the group has said and be a student who says, it sounds like there's 2 groups of thought here, this and this, right? Or it sounds like we could go in this direction because this is kind of where a bunch of people's thoughts are. And I love that even though it is so hard, like if we lean into that for kids as well as adults, like everyone can be doing it, and we can help people like be good at it before they get to that adult moment where they're like, oh, this is really hard, if we're practicing it K-12.
Yeah. If we're practicing and teaching it and practicing with kids so that it becomes part of, in the adaptive schools, Garmston, Wellman, McAnders' work, they talk about it becoming part of identity, right? So it becomes who you are, not just what you do.
I love that. And I've been playing a lot with this idea of like values, I think fit in that abstraction piece. Like, can you
Mhm.
identify the values someone is bringing to a conversation about like a political issue or something, right? Like that feels, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that feels like you're taking from the concrete, I believe in this
Mhm.
policy or I disagree with this policy because this is a value I'm holding on to that's deeply
Yep.
important. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And so in a paraphrase world, it'd be paraphrase Mac. So it sounds like this is because of this, this is the value that you hold.
That's helpful. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Mhm.
there are so many challenges. I usually ask Trevor about challenges at the end, but I feel like people are just filled with the people who have had this experience of doing teacher team leadership they're filled with there's this moment or there was this challenge where I led it, or even people
Yep.
who are just a team member and haven't been in the leader role. Like, yeah, like this was the reason I don't want to go to that meeting, like as you alluded to before. So there are several you mentioned. I'm sure there are several more that we can talk about. People can get the book for the full rundown, but I am particularly interested in a few of them.
Mhm.
One of them, I think, as a coach and a facilitator, is like we say sometimes as educators these really big statements
Mhm.
that feel like they're usually like the gut check moments for me that I'm like, ooh, something feels off here. Like it feels
Mhm.
like we're not saying the thing. And
Mhm.
instead, what
Mhm.
we are saying feels maybe problematic, even
Mhm.
potentially.
Mhm.
And you have this beautiful, I don't remember if it was a table, I wrote down a page
Yeah.
number, but like it was kind of thinking through what are the prompts that you can offer in that moment of someone saying something that is general and not helpful to get it
Yep.
to the specific. I'm not
Yep.
talking about that well. Can you talk us through that more?
Yeah. 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 So I can remember actually I was the day that I thought of this phrase that really encapsulates this idea. And I was in California, Southern California, Paris, California, not spelled France. It doesn't look like Paris, France either. Um, and had been working with some teams in that area. And that morning, like I was in the shower the flash came to me: generalizations are the enemy of improvement. Like that's a pretty broad statement, and I think it's accurate. Generalizations are the enemy of improvement. I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. I'm too whatever. That's like that. Okay, so that's not going to help me get better. What I need to do is get specific. What are the foods that I'm eating? What are my exercise routines? What's my sleep regimen like? What is my social life like? Right? We need to get into the specific nitty gritty. And if we just say, "Whoop, I'm too whatever," that's not going to get improvement. Generalizations are the enemy of improvement. And so that's where so I said that this work builds on a lot of people's work. There are a few things that are unique to me that like I created, which is I don't know, it's kind of cool, I guess. But this is one of them where I've not seen anybody talk about this being an actual strategy that a teacher team leader uses in a team. And that is specificity. Because generalizations are the enemy of improvement, we got to get specific. So when comments are made about students, staff, whatever, the culture of the climate, we got to get specific. And so, like you said, I have a table there, or figure, I guess it's a figure, in chapter 5.1, that says, here are some examples of generalizations that you might hear in a team. So a generalization like students just aren't getting this concept. Okay, so then I lay out, well, why is that a generalization? And then here's a prompt that you can use to help prompt the team to move forward. So if somebody says, kids just aren't getting the concept, well, that's a generalization because which students, which parts of the concept is it just like are we specific enough in that? And so then what might be a prompt? So a prompt might be something along the lines of, well, so it sounds like we're frustrated because certain kids are struggling with this part. Which part and which kids? Now let's get specific. I was actually just working with a team recently where they said, well, the reason why kids aren't being successful is because they're not here. Like if they were here, then we would do better. And I said, so let's look at the kids. So are there kids who aren't getting it who are here? Well, yeah. Okay, so what are we going to do about those kids? Like the kid's not here, teacher classroom, you can do some things to like engage them while they're there, but that's a systems issue. We got to help get the kids in the classroom. While they're in the classroom, if they're there and not getting it, that's the issue we got to address. So we got to get specific. Generalizations are the enemy of improvement.
That's such a good example. I mean, that resonates. Yeah, that people have said that, and that's like, ooh, what do you do with that? Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Now I
Yeah.
know. I mean, you have so many other ones. I mean, I don't think we'll have time to get to all of them. You have one I really like about groupthink, right? Like bringing in external voices to combat kind of groupthink where everyone thinks the same
Mm.
thing. Oh, not following norms, I think was a good one because
Yeah.
I mean, I also think about those classroom parallels, right? We all set norms, meeting or class, and then we don't follow them. So, I mean, one of the ones that I really liked was that you said someone, like assigned people to break a particular norm on a schedule and just saw if there was accountability. Oh my God, that's brilliant.
Isn't that hilarious? Yeah. There was a team I was with, and I shared this with other folks too. Where so the idea is we set our norms. Let's acknowledge up front that every single one of us is a human being. Let's just lay it out there. Like this is a fact. We're a human being, and as human beings, we're going to screw up. Every single one of us is going to screw up, and we're going to break a norm. So let's see if we're going to hold ourselves accountable to it. So this is a strategy where early on in the year, right after we set the norms, I saw a team do this, and now some other teams have shared it with and have been doing it. Let's take those norms, put them on little strips of paper, cut them up, and put them in a basket. And then let's take the first several meetings at dates and put them on a piece of paper on little strips, cut them up, and put them in a different basket. Each person draw out a norm and a date. And that's the date that without anybody else knowing, you are assigned to break that norm and see if anybody holds you accountable. And holding accountable doesn't have to look like yelling at people. Holding accountable should be like a light and easy thing because we know we're going to break norms. So like have a fun way. Create a system. How are you going to hold each other accountable? Are you going to I was with a team that they had a thing on their agenda. It said throw something not sharp but gently at them. Other teams will have like little plush toys. I was in a team, they had little Nerf guns. And anybody just like to start to reach for one of those, and everybody was like, yeah, you're right, exactly. Some fun way of being able to hold each other accountable. And so then when it's your date assigned, are you actually held accountable? Because if you're not, then that says something about the psychological safety of the team. What do we need to do then so that we can feel comfortable holding each other accountable to our norms?
Oh, I love that. In addition to the amazing specificity of your ideas there, I also just love that accountability is an element of this. I
Mm-hmm.
have seen many great teachers who are fantastic at setting the norms, of getting, everyone, all the kids to participate, and we agree with them right on a class level, as well as a teacher level. And then the accountability piece is the piece that's missing.
Yep.
And so it didn't really
Yep.
even matter that we set the norms in the first place.
Exactly. It's not worth the paper it's written on if we're not going to hold each other accountable to them. It's just a waste of time if we don't.
Totally, totally.
Yeah, and it has to be a mutual accountability. That's a key piece too. It's not the teacher team leader's responsibility to hold everybody else accountable. It's not the administrator. It's the team. We set these norms. I love Bill Ferreter. He uses this phrase. He says norms are an expression of our needs. So we, as a team, as a third grade team, have set our norms. Those are an expression of our needs. If our needs are not being met, then we're not going to be effective. So make sure that our norms, we hold each other accountable so that we can have our needs met.
That is such a good phrase. That is such a good, I'm like using that.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Oh, Bill Ferreter is incredible. Yeah.
That's so good. Because I think one thing you might even mention in the book is like sometimes people struggle to come up with norms, and so like figure out in your brain like what's a meeting that didn't go well or that you didn't feel great about, and like what
Mm-hmm.
was an unmet need, and like how do you create a norm based on that missing thing. And so
Yep.
that makes total sense now that you've connected the dots for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so I guess moving to close up, it's incredible. We're almost out of time here.
Oof.
Lots of ideas shared. What is one thing, in addition to going to get the book, which I encourage people to do, and we'll drop a link in the show notes, that people can do like today, tomorrow, like as they end the episode here, to get kind of started with some of this stuff?
Yeah. So even if you don't have the book, I encourage you to get the book. Solution Tree has free reproducibles for all their books. And so those are available on the Solution Tree website for the book. You have to create an account. They don't spam you. So it's okay, like get an account. And I also have all of those reproducibles on my website as Google Docs. On Solution Tree site, they're PDFs. On mine, they are Google Docs. So you can just, make a copy and then off you go to use them. And there's about 50 downloadable reproducibles for this book. And that website, I did a tiny URL for that. So it's a tinyurl.com and then /TTLH Chad, as in Teacher Team Leader Handbook Chad. TTLH Chad, folks can go there, access whatever they like, and start digging into the reproducibles, and then get the book if you like.
Amazing. And we'll link to that as well in the show notes in case anyone's driving or doing things. Not writing that down. We'll get you.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then I think I asked this last time, but I'm just always so curious for guests. What is something, Dr. Dumas, that you have been learning about lately? It could be professionally, or it could be something else fun. Actually, I think the last one you said was about this book in the last podcast.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Because I was in the throes of it. Yeah, things that I'm learning about. I love this work because I get to learn every day about how to help a team move forward. So I've got a number of books right on my desk that I'm looking at digging into here over the next couple of weeks. We're recording this in June, so I've got some work here in June, but I've also got a whole week that's just open. So I just finished reading Brig Lane's PLC dashboard, where the dashboard component I think is particularly powerful for how do we know that teams are. How do we know? First of all, who we need to support, and then second of all, who and what we need to celebrate. And without a dashboard, you're not able to know that. So that's been really cool. Also been reading about celebrations. Sean Cresswell and Katie Sue Trikoff, I think is her last name, have some incredible work around celebrate to motivate and the power of celebrations, even simple celebrations. And there's a Facebook group called Celebrate to Motivate that anybody can join. That it's incredible. Like, people go on there and post different ideas of what they're doing for celebrations in their school. And I learned so much with those things popping up. Celebrate to Motivate, a really cool page. And I haven't read the book yet, but I'm sure it's amazing because I know those two.
That's incredible. And I mean, that's something we didn't even get into with your book, but there's a ton of stuff about joy and celebrations. And there's like page numbers I noted to be like, oh, this is how you celebrate. So yeah, that's something we didn't even scratch, but that's in the book.
Yeah.
And finally, people are going to want to connect with you. I know we'll drop the links that we mentioned, of course, in the blog post in the show notes, but where can people connect or follow you?
Yep. I am on Twitter or X or whatever you call it these days. And it's a simple hashtag, just @Chad Dumas. No numbers, lines, underscores, anything like that. Just ChadDumas. And then I also am on LinkedIn and Facebook. And I have tiny URLs for those as well. tinyurl.com/learningchad is the LinkedIn one, Learning Chad. And the Facebook one is FB Learning Chad. So either way of those, people can reach out.
Amazing. Dr. Dumas, thank you so much for this conversation.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you like this episode, I bet you'll be just as jazzed as I am about my coaching program for increasing student-led discussions in your school. Shane Safir and Jamila Dugan talk about a pedagogy of student voice in their book, Street Data. They say students should be talking for 75% of class time. Do students in your school talk for 75% of each class period? I would love for you to walk into any classroom in your community and see this in action. If you're smiling to yourself as you listen right now, grab 20 minutes on my calendar to brainstorm how I can help you make this big dream a reality. I'll help you build a comprehensive plan, from full-day trainings and discussion protocols like Circle and Socratic Seminar to follow-up classroom visits where I can plan, witness, and debrief discussion-based lessons with your teachers. Sign up for a nerdy, no-strings-attached brainstorm call at lindsaybethlyons.com/contact. Until next time, leaders, think big, act brave, and be your best self.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.